This is Bryan Lincoln, producer of Hidden Harbor Mysteries. In this behind-the-scenes episode, I'm interviewing some of the cast. I'll be talking to them about the show, then highlighting some of their other work, which I can't recommend to you enough. First, we have Veronica Giguere, who played our heroine. Then I'll talk to Kathryn Pryde, who played our villain. And finally, I'll talk to Dave Robison, who played our narrator. I'm here with Veronica Giguere. Hey, Veronica.
Hi, Brian.
How are you doing this fine day?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. So, I'm introducing some of the cast to our listeners in the feed here. And as the lead, you are someone that must be in this.
Oh, must be.
So, the first question I'm asking everyone is, did you have fun performing a character in Hidden Harbor Mysteries?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. That was so much fun, and it was different from any other character I've voiced, I think, in the time I've been podcasting and doing voice acting, so it was a real treat.
Was it what you expected when you accepted?
You know, when it comes to UNJ, I never know what to expect. And I think that is a wonderful thing. It was sort of, but you know, with the way that Jay writes and the way he presents characters, there's always something unexpected.
Yeah.
So it did have that, you know, that nice old time radio feel, that mystery aspect, but there was plenty of cool stuff I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of playing the character, what did you find it easy to fall into it, or was it a challenge for you?
Trying to figure out the accent and carriage first. That was the most difficult part. But once the character was explained to me, and once I did a little more research on my own into the older movies and really looking at old-time comic books and just kind of getting the flavor of your heroes and heroines in there, it got easier. But the first couple times going through was a little challenging.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is. I mean, and it's kind of a vague direction to just say we want an old-time sound. I mean, sure. Everyone's going to take that in a little bit of a different direction. And, you know, when Jay and I put this together, it was very much doing it in a way that we gathered together people that we had a lot of trust in to do something, you know, not to just ask, what do you want, but actually bring something of their own to it and interpret it in their own way. And, of course, I know Jay wrote it with you partly in mind, so...
Still blows my mind. Still makes me go all, you know, pink in the face, but...
Well, you and Jay have a past relationship in the sense that you narrated The Diary of Jill Woodbine, which was, you know, a straight read side story from H.G. World. So he was very, very comfortable with you in the sense that he knew your range because you had done that for him. Over, I mean, do you know what the word count was? I mean, it's pretty hefty, isn't it?
I would have to go back through because he gave it to me in pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Chapter, but I know when I was cleaning up files and stuff, there was a lot of stuff in there. I know we had 40-some chapters, and each chapter was anywhere from 9 minutes to a half an hour. Yeah. So there was, I'd say, at least 60,000, 70,000 words in there.
So you have a lot of experience doing different kinds of narration.
Yes.
I think giving a full history might be a bit too much for what we're doing here, but
could be a while.
But what are the highlights? What are some of the main things people should know about you in terms of what you have done before?
Well, most people know me as the narrator and producer for the Secret World Chronicle series, which started out, that was my first, I guess, jump or push into podcast fiction. And that is, for those who don't know, it is a superhero science fiction series that's written with Mercedes Lackey, Dennis Lee, Cody Martin, and me. I'm a co-author since book 2. We're working on book 5 now, and it is a published series through Baen. And we have an agreement with them that lets us podcast the series for free, and then people can pick up the books on their own. I've done a lot of reading for the Drabblecast, for escape artists. I've become the person that people will hand the squicky, gory things to, and I will read no problem. That's been really interesting. I've read for Jay, for The Diary of Jill Woodbine. People might also know me from a story called The Ballad of Iron Percy by Edward Clarke.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to you, by the way.
It's weird. People either get introduced via Secret World Chronicle or via the ballad.
Actually, the first introduction to you, I'm lying. The first introduction to you was when you and I were both cast into the same Justin McCumber story.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I remember that. And the funny thing is, Justin has pretty much said I'm his go-to person for narrating many of his books. I'm working on one now for him. Because in addition to doing the podcasts, I also narrate audiobooks. I do a lot of work via ACX.
Yeah. Now, ACX, for people that don't know, is that's a service that basically puts authors and rights holders together with narrators in order to allow, I would say independent narrators to read stories that will appear on Audible.
Yeah, it's independent narrators, also producers who then outsource the narration. But I do a lot of work through there, but I've done some books for Justin, and every time I get a project from Justin, I always have to tweak something in the studio. It's like he gives me something. It's like, oh, we got to fix this cable. Oh, we got to fix this program.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a while for narrating stuff. And then I've narrated some of my own things that I've written either by myself or with a co-author. But there's a cyberpunk, how do I spin it? Inner city cyberpunk story that I co-wrote with Cedric Johnson and that I narrated and produced, and it's called Broken. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote a short story and I thought, I can't narrate the whole thing. So I graciously asked a whole bunch of people, including you, to do voices for a full cast of a story called Fear of Thought. That both Broken and Fear of Thought go through my Voices by Veronica site. Mm-hmm. But the other titles have their own sites and feeds throughout the interwebs.
So you've done narration, and clearly, especially with this show, you've done audio drama.
Yeah.
Was it easy for you to transition over? Or was this your first audio drama?
Let me think. Technically, yes. I want to say technically, yes. Although I've done live reads, because I've done the Metamor City live reads
right.
at Balticon. And, oh, goodness.
But Metamor City is still usually, I guess they're more audio drama that he puts together for live, doesn't he? Now that I think about it, because I'm like, well, Metamor City is typically a full cast audio type thing, but I guess those are more audio drama that he writes, isn't it? It's a script.
Yeah, it's more, if you think about it in the sense of a film noir audio drama where you have a narrator, but that narrator is actively participating in the story, and they're more of the transition between scenes rather than somebody doing the he said, she said in the middle. And
by the way, we're talking about Metamor City, and Chris Lester is actually in the cast for Hidden Harbor with a small part, and that was a lot of fun for me to bring him in because he's one of the reasons I got into doing this in the first place.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's great. So how was it for you to do this, it being your first audio drama then?
Fun. I always approach this as, oh my gosh, I get to play. This is fun. It was different because I haven't had the chance to do a character like this. And it was great because I got feedback, and one of the big differences I think with doing this audio drama versus some other works is because it is an ensemble piece and you have to play off other people. You're constantly getting feedback about how to play off other people. Yeah. And you're not, well, you are locking yourself in your studio and nobody else is around, but you can practice with other people. And it's more of an immediate technique refinement. If I'm on Skype with you and with Laura Nicole and we're running through lines, because I'm hearing people and because you're hearing us and giving us notes, I think doing audio drama is a faster way to improve your skills versus just a straight read or a single, narration where you're telling a story into the book, telling a story for the book. Telling a story, how about that? It's more dynamic. I think you get to play more because there are more voices to play with.
Yeah, and it's also more, I think the kind of acting is a little bit different because I think when you're broken up by a narrator who's sort of describing what's going on, maybe even what your feelings are, you're trying to hit maybe more generic emotions and things with line reads. But I think with audio drama, it's just how you're breathing through a block of text, for example, changes everything. So it's a lot more than just the words themselves. It's the timing, it's the sort of what is going into those lines. Are you conveying that you're tired? Are you conveying that you're angry? Are you conveying that you're, moving around the room while you're talking? Like all of those things come from they're part of the audio drama because people are trying to picture what's going on while you're talking. So sound effects do a lot of that informing, but also the actors have to understand sort of what's going on at a different degree that they would maybe reading prose.
True. And I think in that respect, you have to really understand the space that you're recording in.
Yeah.
I know that there were times where, my studio area is quite small. If I stretch my arms out, I'm going to hit something and injure myself. So when there was the need for that movement, I had to stop and think, okay, I'm going to have to read ahead. This is what it's going to call for. Let me move things. Let me make sure that, I've hung fabric so that I can, buffer some sound, but so I'm not going to fly off and get stuck in it when I start to get into a line, which sadly has happened.
So I think we'll wrap up here in a sec, but any final words for an audience member who just found this and is about to start listening?
Keep listening. That's always keep listening. And thank you for listening. I think if you're not used to this format of the old time drama, you need to give it a couple episodes. Be prepared for cliffhangers because the older formats lived on cliffhangers. Yeah. They wanted people to come back. And I think one of the neatest things about this show is the immersion factor. It's not just the accents that are used. It's not just the tone of the production and the filters that are used, but it's the fact that we have commercials. Yep. For the times. It's a completely immersive thing, and you have to give that a chance. Once you give it a chance, it's hard not to enjoy.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm here with Kathryn Pryde, the wonderful voice actor who played Mistress Penumbra in the Hidden Harbor Mysteries. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi there.
I just want to ask you a couple quick questions here. First, I wanted to focus a little bit on Hidden Harbor itself. I wanted to ask you, first of all, did you have fun playing Mistress Penumbra?
Oh my gosh, yes. I've always wanted to play that kind of, really film noir sort of villainous, and the opportunity to do that here, I simply could not pass up. I had an absolute blast. It was tons of fun. It was tons of fun. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's a challenging role from my end to cast because there's got to be a charisma to that character. if that character is somebody who is not owning the scene every time she walks out there, you're really going to have a problem.
Oh, definitely. Through. I mean, it would be like casting Sunset Boulevard and not having the right actress to play the lead, and if they can't command every time they show up, then how would they have gotten it as far as they did?
Exactly.
In the world, in the circles that they travel. Oh, totally.
So what was your impression of the role? Was it what you expected when you first accepted it, or was it a little different?
In a lot of ways, it was what I expected. And a lot of that was because you guys kind of gave me the rundown of the character in pretty good detail before I accepted the part. And just, whenever a director comes to me with a specific voice match in mind, or at least a type of character, it kind of informs my performance already. I sort of start developing a personality for that character based off of the voice of the voice and the kind of person that they chose. So in a lot of ways, she was exactly what I expected. And in several ways, as I kind of started recording more of the episodes, I was like, wow, no, she's even more awesome than I thought she was. She's got some skeletons in her closet and then some. Yeah. So in that respect, it was awesome and very fun and surprising for me, because I would start recording an episode after doing a read through, and as I start to get into it, the character would just keep developing on her own and start settling into the scene, and I had some interesting reads and stuff that I wasn't expecting it to go quite the direction that it did.
It was a lot of fun picking lines and assembling all that stuff. I was just kind of goosebumpy the whole time. It was great.
Then I have done my job.
That's awesome. So one of the things I loved the most about your performance was the accent that you pulled off. Was that challenging for you, or was it just something in your wheelhouse?
It was in my wheelhouse in sort of in the way that I had never really had an opportunity to use it. Mm-hmm. But I am an avid fan of Kate Mulgrew. Captain Janeway is my favorite Star Trek captain, and I've pretty much grown up admiring her. And so I've always sort of had this very Kate Mulgrew-esque voice in my head that I'd never had a chance to use. And that was really sort of the launch point for the character for me, was this sort of Kate Mulgrew. There's an episode of, I think it's Murder, She Wrote, that I remember watching as a kid. It was one of the first times I saw Kate Mulgrew outside of Voyager, and she's playing this very femme fatale. She's got this big white fur coat on, and she's playing a Hollywood starlet, and the whole time I'm playing Mistress Penumbra, that's what I'm seeing. Nice. Is this big mink coat and this very Kathryn Janeway sort of Kate Mulgrew-esque character. So the opportunity to actually use that voice had never come up before now, so I was giddy the whole time I got to do this role. That's
pretty awesome, because the things I've had you in before, because I've had you do a couple of Dune Steve episodes for me, and tended to have a Southern accent there. So for a while, at first I was like, I wonder if she only has a Southern accent, because I didn't know you well enough to know what your range was.
I just happen to live with Texans. I'm actually from New York, and then grew up in D.C., and then moved to Texas to be with my partner and her family. So imagine what it's like living around nothing but Texans for 6 years.
I lived in Austin for a few years.
Yeah, very, very strange.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, do you have a lot of other accents, or what's your...
Oh, yeah. Dialect work is one of my favorite things to do, and awesome. I haven't met a dialect I don't like. I've met ones I can't do, but I've never met one that I didn't like. And not as the other production house that I work with, Pendant Audio, for a time we had a number of other productions that are now archived. They're no longer available, but I played several different dialects. I think every character I had had a different dialect or a different accent based on region or something. I mean, I was a Russian mobster. I was a Romanian queen. I was a New York beat cop. I was a different part of the island, New York cop. I played a Southerner. I played a Midwesterner. I played French. It's a lot of stuff. And British and Scottish as well.
So you've been involved with Pendant for a long time then?
Yes, I have. I actually joined Pendant in 2005 when they got their start.
Wow.
They had just started their first production, which is no longer available, sadly. And they were getting ready to branch out to 3 more productions. And I got cast in roles in 2 out of the 3 my first time out of the gates.
Nice.
And I've been with them ever since.
Nice. And you produced for them, correct?
Yes, I do. It's kind of cool because I have the distinction of having the only Pendant show that started out non-Pendant. It was an independent production that I started when I was in college, and I had just learned about radio drama and just thought it was the coolest thing in the world back in my days of being on the Voice Acting Alliance. And I started a production called Genesis Avalon, and it was my own personal take on a superhero. And it was a superhero with a lot of mythology, so Celtic, Jewish, Egyptian, you name it. I've got a place for it, even if you haven't seen it in the show. It's somewhere in my head. So I started working on that independently while I was voice acting strictly for Pendant, and then Jeffrey, the executive producer, approached me about producing for Pendant specifically because he'd heard Genesis Avalon, and he and I created Seminar, which is our sort of Twilight Zone meets, Outer Limits sort of anthology show. I came up with the concept for the wraparounds, the bookending, and overall kind of framework for the show. And I did that for a couple of years before passing the reins on that one and going back to working on Avalon because that was sort of my passion. Mm-hmm. And I went through and I actually wound up having to remix everything I did for Avalon independently with the resources and the talent that we had available at Pendant.
Right.
And then produced all 50 episodes non-stop. In fact, I lost my last season break. We were going to have a break between seasons 3 and 4, and Jeffrey emails me and goes, yeah, due to other things, that's not going to happen. I'm going to need you to keep producing straight through to the end. And I was like,
ouch.
Okay then. Yeah, so.
And you wrote it, right?
I did. I wrote it. I wrote it, I directed it, and I played a character in it. And that was one of those situations where I looked at this character and went, oh my God, this character has to know everything that's in my head.
Yeah.
But I can't tell the actor that, because if I told the actor that, it would ruin their performance. So I guess I'm gonna have to play the character.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened.
I'm impressed by a lot of things about what you've done there, but one of the things is 50 episodes. I mean, and it wraps up at 50, correct?
It does. It is. Yeah, it is a solid 50 episode run, start to finish.
So it's a recently finished 50 episode show.
Yeah, it only finished. It finished. I think about 6 months ago ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It finished at the beginning of 2014, so that was when the last episode aired. And it's all available. It's all free, all high quality, and it's my baby. I was sad to see her go, but I'm glad that I got to finish it because it was 8 years of my life, and that was a monumental achievement.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. As a fellow producer, all I can do is bow and awe. I mean, Hidden Harbor's 15 episodes, and that. And 15 fairly, 15-minute to 20-minute episodes.
So you're only 35. You've only got 35 to go.
Exactly. I'm like, whew. But yeah, so that can be found. I'm sure you can find Genesis Avalon on iTunes. Is there a website or anything that?
Yep, you can find us on iTunes. So you can search for it on iTunes, where you can pick up the feed and download it from there. Or you can go directly to our website, which is www.pendantaudio.com. Genesis Avalon is on there. There's a sidebar that has all of the different shows that we have available, and so Avalon's like square in the middle of that, I think. And you can see all of the episodes, download them all, and there's also cover art that goes along with every single episode, which I think really cool. And I had an awesome artist by the name of Dan Sean for the first 20 or so episodes, and then he had to give it up because of time commitments, and my partner actually stepped in and finished the run.
Nice.
And she's I'm biased, but she's an awesome artist. So it's very cool because you're listening to a superhero show and you see a piece of cover art at the very beginning of the episode that can help create the images in your head of what I saw. Because Chris and I collaborated very closely on the artwork. So it's very cool. So pendantaudio.com, Genesis Avalon. That's my baby. That's my brainchild. Love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, I definitely think anyone who's enjoyed Hidden Harbor definitely should go check this out. It's more superhero stuff. And I've loved the show. It's great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate every single listener I have, so I'm glad that people are still loving it, even though it's finally over.
Sweet. Well, awesome. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Bryan.
I'm here with Dave Robison. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Bryan.
How are you doing today?
Today, it's a holiday weekend, so I'm doing very, very well.
Cool. So I'm talking to the cast about Hidden Harbor. This is going to be one of the first things some people will hear regarding the show, so they haven't listened yet.
Okay.
So first off, the first question I'm asking everyone is, did you have fun voicing for Hidden Harbor Mystery?
Oh my God, yes. Because you gave me the plum role, Bryan. Really, you and Jay both. You let me be the announcer, so I can go back to the glory days of yesteryear and put on that whole the pulpy radio announcer schmaltz and. There is no cap to that. So, and that's perfect for me. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah,
yes, I had a blast doing that.
And it's hard to imagine a different voice for it. I mean, it's been.
You're very kind. You're very kind. It was. I mean, the script lent itself to it. I mean, really, nobody could read the script for the narrator without. Stay tuned next week for another exciting. The whole schmaltz. So no, I hope, you know what I really hope? I hope that we keep going so I can come back and do more narrator shit.
Yeah, right. So do you want to buy Eagle brand cigarettes now though?
Well, yeah, see, and that was another cool thing is like nobody in contemporary society would ever have a cigarette brand as the sponsor for their show. But
right.
it was perfect in that whole vibe. Because it speaks back to those days when smoking was just something you did, and certainly the promotion for it within the context of the show is brilliant. I would totally buy Eagle brand cigarettes, absolutely.
Now you're a tremendous voice talent. I'm not shy to say that.
Thank you.
And you have a background. You've done some audio drama stuff for a while.
I have,
right?
Yeah. I actually started back in 2004, and none of your listeners, well, maybe one or two, but none of your listeners are probably going to know about this. But my wife and I did an audio drama company in Fort Collins, Colorado, called Rabbit Hole Radio Theater, and we produced all original scripts, all built from the ground up. Probably a good 40 plus hours of just some fabulous audio drama, and that really. By the time you get to your second or third season of audio drama, you start developing that ear, that aesthetic, that sense for what works, because it's very different from narration. It's very different even from full cast. Yeah. Because it's like you've dropped a microphone in the middle of action that's going on, and that's exactly how it has to feel. Yeah. So that aesthetic was something that I tried to bring to my performance as I was going into it. And then yes, I've done a lot of narration for Drabblecast, for Pseudopod and Escape Pod and Podcastle, Starship Sofa, Tales That Terrify, all kinds of great stuff out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've somehow fallen into the vocal trap. It's like finally I get to use this buttery man voice of mine in some way other than just singing in the shower, which is a great delight for me.
Is that oldest stuff of yours out there anymore, or is it?
It's not. Although I'm thinking that with now that podcasting is the craze and Audible is so huge, I'm actually thinking about approaching the theater company for whom we produced these. These were not owned by us, but by the theater company that needed them. I'm thinking about approaching them and acquiring the rights so that we can put it out there. Just because there's some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
That's cool. How many people were there in that?
Well, for our first season, it It was crazy. We decided we were going to do a big 13 episode arc, this massive, why dip your toe into audio drama? Let's do something big and huge, like Hidden Harbor Mysteries.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience with audio drama. So we put out auditions, and I think we got maybe 10 people. So there was a lot of double casting and so on. Yeah. By the third season, when we put up auditions, we had over 250 volunteers involved with the project. And we actually stopped doing the big arc stories so that we could have more scripts with more performers, and we could actually share more mic time with more people because so many people wanted to be involved.
Now, were they all local at that time?
Pretty much, although some people were driving, 45 minutes to make the rehearsals and the recordings, which I found just awesome and amazing. And I think that really kind of speaks to the appeal of, theater of the mind.
Yeah.
I think, and of course we're no stranger to it with podcast fiction and Audible and so on and so forth, but audio drama is different. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. It's utterly immersive, and it's like a theater playing in your head. And I think people respond to that. I think they resonate to that. So once we got our first season out there and people saw that, holy crap, this is for real. And it's broadcast, because we had a local radio station that aired our episodes, and word got out. People wanted to be a part of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
Now, I want to highlight one other thing, because you have a podcast called The Roundtable Podcast that I personally think is one of the best podcasts out there. I have so much fun listening to that.
You're very kind. Thank you. We certainly have a lot of fun recording that thing, let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I met you and your co-host, Bryan, who is also in Hidden Harbor Mysteries, back when you were starting the show. And
we had you on as a guest host.
Yeah, exactly. And then we were able to put it together. I was able to cast both of you in some things since then. And it was, man, Bryan is great too.
He's a theater slut. He's just awesome. Roll lines. Yes, I can do that. He's all over.
Yeah. I mean, just some of the stuff that he did is just some of my favorite characters in the show. But
he brings a very off kilter is not the word, but he brings this perspective to everything that he does that is utterly unique and utterly fresh. I think he lives in a different world than the rest of us do. And he just kind of comes in and visits from time to time and brings this wonderful aesthetic, this wonderful voice to what he does. Cause, listening to the round table, the ideas he comes up with, the brainstorms, the questions that he poses to the guest host when we interview them, he really cuts to the heart of something in a way that is unexpected and delightful.
Yeah. And for people who are listening to this, who haven't heard of that podcast, it's a writing podcast, and it tends to come in two parts. At first, it's Dave and his co-host interviewing an author about basically how they do their thing. Mm-hmm. And that's you call that the 20 minutes with,
right. Segment, which is never 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Cause when you're interviewing people like Cameron Hurley or Kat Rambo or, we got Tim Marquitz coming up here pretty quick. Right. 20 minutes just ain't enough, but we try and cap it. We try.
And the other part is the actual, roundtable discussion, part of the show really is, it's the two co-hosts again with this guest author helping another person, usually a startup writer, but doesn't have to be, to brainstorm and flesh out a story idea they have. So they present their idea, and then discussion commences.
Yes.
And it's creative.
Brainstorming ensues.
It's creative discussion. It's just so well done. And part of it is just the density of good ideas is amazing, whether it comes from you or the guests. I feel like I learned so much that you never could predict based on what the topic of the story is and based on who the guests are. You can never predict what you're going to learn, but it's going to be something cool.
And that's the magic of this thing. And certainly unintended on my part. All I wanted to do was brainstorm stories, because that's what me and Bryan used to do back in Colorado when we were living in the same zip code. Yeah. And you're right though, because bringing in different authors with different experiences, usually genre fiction, but science fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy, romance, whatever. And then the writer that brings their story, and then of course myself and Bryan or whoever the co-host is du jour, that ensemble of perspective. It's like this event horizon of inspiration, and people ping off of each other, and based on your experience, your background, your wherever your head is, even just in that moment, new ideas are discovered just right then and there. And inevitably, there have been episodes where I'm going, oh crap, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And it's like magic. It always does. And that just blows me away. So I really appreciate you saying that, because that's something that I feel is really one of the values of the podcast, an unintended value, but definitely a value.
Yeah. I just think it just fits so well. And part of it is obviously your personality helps to glue it all together. But I think even somebody who wasn't a writer would really enjoy the conversations. Like for me, I enjoy writing, and it really inspires me. It's just some of the ideas people come up with and the directions or the questions that get asked. It's like, it's really important as a writer to get that kind of perspective that maybe you don't have when you sit in your little cave and write all day, and the kind, you get challenged a little bit, and to hear someone else get challenged, it just sparks the imagination.
Sure. Well, and that's why we bring on the established authors rather than have it just me, Bryan, and a writer.
Right.
Because there'd be a lot of froth going on there, and it'd be fun. But by bringing in a veteran of the writing wars, as it were, we get that experience and those insights that, eventually we'll all discover if we write long enough.
Yeah.
But this is kind of a shortcut, and we can get right to the meat of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I haven't pushed the point enough, go listen to this show. It's awesome. Dave, can you say where people can find the show?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at, we are on iTunes, of course, and on Stitcher Radio. But you can get, subscribed right to it at www.roundtablepodcast.com.
Awesome. And I'll link it as well.
You're a gentleman, sir. Thank you.
So thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And everyone, listen to Hidden Harbor Mysteries.
Thank you for listening. Find links for Veronica, Kathryn, and Dave on our website at hiddenharbormysteries.com. Hidden Harbor Mysteries is released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives 4.0 license. Check out the website, as I said, and you can also look for more of my productions at lincolnaudio.com. All right, I'm here with Veronica. Let me start over. I must say I'm doing this after a long night shift, and I have a whiskey in my hand. So
but that's how you're supposed to interview.
Yeah, we'll start that over.